stars, and that's who we are. We are voices. There's nothing to fear. Explode in your rear. Feel our voices.
Oh, Guardians, we're back. This is Ed.
Angel.
And Carl.
So, yeah, we're just discussing the rich history of the Guardians of the Galaxy and how it's all starting to come together, people. So we have like TV properties, movie properties. But again, the comics I know least about, but I can't wait to see where all this is going.
And they have a lot to work with because during like the late 60s and early 70s, people like Jack Kirby were really getting tired of the story, one shot of comic books, and a lot of them were trying to stretch it out into like longer story arcs. Because Jack Kirby, especially, he really thought that was the future of comic books, was like, you know, collected stories that you could publish in what pretty much became trade paperbacks and things of that nature. And the only way that they could really start doing these stories was to branch out into these other characters. And one of the biggest places that they started doing this was what's kind of now known as Cosmic Marvel. So that's your space characters, so like your Inhumans, your Silver Surfers, things of that nature. Even Thor, they started becoming like him more of an alien and things of that nature. And that was something that they really started to cut their teeth onto. And Guardians of the Galaxy, the modern Guardians of the Galaxy, or even back then the classic Guardians of the Galaxy, came from that whole spell of them wanting to kind of break out of the traditional mold of the Avengers, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and sort of the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby stuff, and more what Jack Kirby and those sort of guys wanted to do on their own. And there's a lot of stuff to be worked with in that area. So
yeah, it's amazing to see what they were trying to get away with. I mean, they did have the advantage of coming out of the 60s and getting into a lot more psychedelic stuff and really taking chances to push the art. And Marvel was the first to actually push the content, like you said, just beyond the kids' fair or even the stuff that, like, they were recreating the comics with Spider-Man, just the type of heroes and stories that they were doing. So now it wasn't even like space race crap. It was like really far out, like existential type space things, sci-fi, but also kind of mythological. Just amazing stuff. The Guardians just seem to fit right into that.
And you know, and it was really funny because if you look at that time, like 1966 was when Fantastic Four did the Galactus storyline for the first time, and you know, that's considered to a lot of people be like, that's a big plot, you know, like that's a big one for Marvel. But even back in the day, that was only 3 issues. You know, it was 3 issues. It wasn't really a crossover story, so you didn't have the X-Men showing up, you didn't have all these like the Avengers showing, like it was a Fantastic Four story, you know, and that was one of the big points where there's like, we can package this as being more than just one story per issue. You know, it's like, oh, the Joker shows up, he steals some pies, Batman beats the Joker, the end. You know, it's like they start breaking it out into this longer stuff. And that was really the start of it. And that's actually one reason why Jack Kirby left, was he wasn't getting the recognition, he wasn't getting the freedom he wanted. And that's why you end up getting like the New Genesis, the Fourth World stuff, where he started doing Apocalypse, New Genesis, and Orion and Darkseid and all that stuff. And that's all coming from that creative urge of those people wanting to do more. And even the original Guardians of the Galaxy, it was something that I guess technically now it's not considered to be main continuity. It was set in the future. It was kind of like the Legion of Superheroes from the DC Comics, where it's these aliens that come together and they're superheroes in the 31st century. And I think they had an astronaut that was like shot forward in time from the 20th century, and like that was their end. You know, it's like they have this one astronaut that's like from a different time trying to adapt to this new world and these crazy creatures and all that stuff. You know, and that's the origin of Guardians of the Galaxy, trying to break out of that mold and do something slightly different, kind of throwing back to the old sci-fi comics that weren't being done anymore, you know, but still keeping it superhero-ish and inside the Marvel wheelhouse. And you know, and I think that's also kind of like why Guardians works now, even though it's completely different characters and more goes from the 2008 comics, but it's something that like it just gives them a lot of freedom and a lot of breathing room, and I think that's the spirit of a lot of these comics. And that's one reason why I'm really excited about like Doctor Strange. And unfortunately, we're not going to see Silver Surfer or Galactus because they're Fantastic Four. So Fox still owns the rights to all that stuff. So we're not going to see that. But Guardians of the Galaxy introduced the Celestials, which is a big part of the cosmic universe. Like there's a cameo by one of the Celestials, and he's the one that has the Power Stone that destroys the planet in the flashback from the Collectors, and and that's a big part of the cosmic universe. So, but
and does the Collector, is he another character that showed up, or is he just created for this movie?
I believe he's a real character.
Yeah, Collector. Yeah, he's a legit character. In doing a lot of research, I had found out stuff about Cosmo the dog having been there with the Collector, and I think Cosmo becomes the head of security for Nowhere, which I think is the base of operations of the Guardians later on.
Yeah.
And so Cosmo, who is the Russian space dog, actually plays a part, and the Collector was there. Wonderful cameo, spoiler, by Benicio del Toro. But regardless, it was he's a character, and it was cool. It was very cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I wish I was more up on to see, just for the Collector's scene, to see, pick out like who was in there, and I'm sure there'll be a website later that it'll just like show all the
and even from the movies, because you had like one of the dark elves from Thor was in there. You had whatever the aliens were that invaded New York in Avengers. There's one of them in the background. So like even from within the films themselves, there's a lot of nice little Easter eggs thrown into that whole scene.
Supposedly, what is that called? The cocoon or something that holds Adam Warlock, I think is the name of the character. Yeah, supposedly that's somewhere in the background. It's been theorized. I don't know much about that. I never actually saw the second Thor, which apparently there was something to do with that in there, I think. And then I know nothing about Adam Warlock and stuff. So,
well, speaking of the second Thor, I think this is really interesting, is because now it didn't really click in my head, but apparently in just about every one of the major Marvel films recently, we've seen an Infinity Stone, even though it hasn't been called that. The Tesseract is actually the Space Stone. The Loki's staff has a stone in it, which is supposed to be the Mind Stone. The Aether from Thor 2 is supposed to be the Reality Stone. We're actually, and now we've finally seen the Power Stone. So we've actually seen 4 of the 6 stones so far from the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones. They've really been clever about putting that stuff in, and then like now looking back on it, I'm like, oh duh, it all makes sense now. But like it had to be someone online pointing it out to me before I even like put 2 and 2 together in that nature.
Seems like we're in on some serious build-up right now.
Yeah.
Be a giant thing coming out later on.
And here's, I know this is getting kind of off topic, but here's the thing I want to know is when the broker was trying to buy the orb from Yondu, who was he trying to buy it for?
Right, that was never specified.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are assuming it's the Collector, but why? Like, I don't know if like he was just covering his bases dealing with Gamora, or if there's like another person that was trying to buy it. So who else knows about the orb, and who else is trying to buy it?
Wasn't it Gamora who brought it to the Collector anyways? That was her initial...
that was her contact for it.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's like there's a lot of interesting questions, and now you have to wonder, like, where are all these different stones at? Who has them? The Tesseract is now locked away in Asgard, and it's like, so you have all these different things that, like, they're all locked away in different locations, and you're just trying to figure out how are they going to have this all come together for what's initially going to be that big push for Thanos? So
yeah, and who how many stones are there?
6.
6? Okay, that's doable. I just want to make sure that it's not going to be like 20.
The 2 that we haven't seen yet is the Life and Death Stone and the Time Stone. Those are the 2 that we haven't seen yet. So. But and here's the funny thing about the Life/Death Stone is that one literally gives the person control over life and death. They can resurrect or kill pretty much anyone at will with that stone. So,
do you see that showing up? Like, this is totally just prediction, but can you take a guess at who would have, what upcoming rumored property, like Doctor Strange, like who do you think would have that stone?
See, I don't know enough about the universe, but then you also have to think that they might be going back to some character that's already showed up in one of the previous movies. What intention would they have for resurrection? I mean, like, because clearly it's going to be like, it's probably going to be something along the lines of a Darth Vader, like, I want to stop death, rah, 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 and that's going to be their, but I don't know.
Well, they already brought Jean Grey back, so it's not going to be Wolverine.
Yeah, my guesses would be Ghost Rider or Punisher. No. Sorry,
we have to save the Punisher.
Can't even hold those down.
Yeah.
It's going. They're saving it for the Blade reboot.
Yeah, there you go. Ant-Man. He loses a fly that he liked flying on, and he decides to bring it back to life.
Don't get me started on the fly. He brings back Jeff Goldblum as the Fly.
Hey.
But I think possibly one of the most interesting characters, though, and as far as like backstory goes, is Groot.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a lot of backstory, and he's also a big standout from this film. I'm a little fuzzy on all of his past, but Joel, you said you did some research on it, right? You know what Groot's all about.
Long and short of it, Groot is from a planet of creatures similar to Groot. I forget the exact name of the creatures, but they are of tree people, plant people, just like that. And they have servants that are rodents, essentially, similar to squirrels, or not unlike a raccoon. And Groot was apparently a member of royalty on the planet, which is where he had gotten to be so smart and everything. They changed stuff in the characters here because Rocket is supposed to just be the weapons expert, whereas Groot is supposed to be the one that can put together a lot of mechanical things, understanding the way things work together. However, they changed it for this film. Groot apparently witnesses one of his fellow species on his planet being rude, harassing, and or beating up one of those rodent-type servants, and decides to battle him. I forget if it's to the death or severely injuring him, thus earning him to be exiled from his planet, which is why Groot is the only one we see of him.
Oh,
basically.
wow. Okay.
Their vocal cords are hardened at a certain length, and so whenever they vibrate, it comes off sounding like I am Groot. Thus, the inflection of I am Groot is saying what he is meaning. So once they've hung out with him enough, once they know Groot enough, they understand him through inflection, not unlike Han with Chewie or R2-D2, any of those. But Groot has a very interesting backstory. Rocket Raccoon was a security officer at one point. Each of them have such an interesting backstory that the sequel or sequels, even regardless of the Infinity Stones, can go in so many directions. I really don't actually want to spoil what Star-Lord has in store because that's some pretty cool stuff. But
and not to mention, James Gunn has pretty much said like his father isn't who you think he is. So now people are leading to like start to think, is he like going away from the comics even? So, and you're right, he does have a lot of cool stuff. So now you're like, is it going to be that cool stuff or is it going to be new cool stuff? And it's just no one knows. It's
pretty much no one knows, and that's a good thing to have the fans on their toes and not know exactly what's going to happen. It keeps everybody surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, going back to like people aren't familiar with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think that I think it really works in their favor because if they do start making changes in these characters, I don't think there's going to be enough people to like get angry on the internet about it to really make it the difference that you see. Like, oh, that he's Ethiopian, he's not from Ghana. It's like.
Yeah, because it's not the Thors, it's not the Hulk, it's not the Spider-Man, where these are hallowed characters that you do not mess with. So I think that's what is going to work in their favor too. Yeah, they've gotten total freedom to create pretty much independent characters on screen that comic people can get behind.
set up such a great universe to explore it. So I'm really excited. Like Joel said, I'm super excited to see what they do in the next couple movies. So.
Oh yeah, and hey, if you're excited, you should let us know. You should go to www.vrradio.com, and we've got links to Facebook and iTunes and YouTube. And you can leave us a Republicom, which is our voicemail service. You can just say how do you do, or you can say shove it up your ass. We'll play it. We don't care, but we want to hear from you. You can also leave a regular old email, and we have all those links up there. And that's it. So till tomorrow's show, we're actually going to respond. Tomorrow's all about you, the listener and/or viewer. So we'll be back. And all right, we're gonna shut it down. So cool, guys. May the force
be with.
Yes.